So I got all of my book recommendations from TikTok. So I'm kind of on an algorithm where it's just feeding me like romantic-y, kind of spicy books. And what that really means is there is a plot. It's not just smut, but there's definitely some sex scenes in it. And let me go ahead and tell you that this is not safe to play out loud at work or in front of your children unless you want to be fired or have CPS show up at your house.
So that's why we saved it for the bonus.
I love this kind of content.
So there's nothing more jarring than when you go into a book and you're like, okay, this is probably going to be fun. And then you hear the trigger warnings, which is a new thing that a lot of authors are doing, which I actually really appreciate because the trigger warnings have stopped me from reading books before because I'm like, I'm not mentally equipped to handle this right now. So it literally lists out anything that could be distressing within the book, right? It won't tell you the way it's depicted. It'll tell you if it goes into detail or not, but it's just kind of a heads up.
So this is, you only get these trigger warnings for audio books, right? Because I don't think I've ever seen a trigger warning in like just a handheld, like you read a book.
Well, I think it's a newer trend.
Okay.
And I've seen them in a couple of ones, but they're darker romances, so they've got some sketchy elements to it.
And what the fuck are you reading?
Well, that's
Based off of some of the recommendations she's given me, some scary shit.
yes.
Scary shit.
But it kind of sucks you in a little bit. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Maybe you won't find yourself, but
you
I'm
sure
listening
you want
to
to
it.
share this?
I literally went back and forth several times because I'm like, I don't know if I want them to know that I read this. But one of these has turned me away, and then I'm probably going to power through and read it anyway. And then the other one is a book I have actually recommended to Abby.
For context, one of the books, I can't remember if you've read it, but we were talking about it. And one of the scenes, one of the scenes involves him trying to drown her in a pool of sharks.
Oh, yeah.
While fucking her.
Railing her from
Railing her from
behind.
behind.
Yep.
What?
By the way, I hated that.
They're doing it in a pool of sharks?
No, he's an oceanographer and he's out studying the sharks. He throws chum into water, shoves her head in the water, and then we're gonna have to put a trigger warning on this whole episode.
It's marine biology porn.
Oh.
Yeah.
By the way,
Interesting.
I hated that for the record, and it almost made me stop reading the book.
Almost.
Almost.
Notice how she said she kept reading.
I wanted a redemption arc.
Do you ever, just a quick sidebar before we play this trigger warning that you hear in this particular audiobook. Do you ever wonder with these authors, like what dark place do you have to go to come up with a scene like that?
I think the better question is, what drugs are they taking? And where can I get some?
Because I think about that about horror movies and films like that, right? Like, yes, there is a creative element to it and imagination into it, but at the same time, that's a really messed up bean. You know what I'm talking about?
Well, you think it is, but the reason I'm bringing it forward is because these authors have been on the New York Times bestseller list for weeks. So the first one I'm going to play for you is called Scythe and Sparrow. It's the third in a trilogy about a serial killer.
Is this the one that I've read?
No, this is the newest one. You read the first two.
Okay,
This is the newest one. It just came out.
Scythe and Sparrow?
Scythe, like a like a wheat thing, and Sparrow. And I want you to listen to the trigger warnings. Now, full disclosure, if you go to read it, I did take out the heavy stuff. So that should give you an indication. There's some heavy stuff.
Wait, you edited the trigger warning?
I did edit it.
What?
Just to keep the lighthearted dark stuff in, but not the heavy dark stuff in.
Okay.
Okay.
I feel like I'm not going to go into it.
Yeah.
Anyway, so this is for Scythe and Sparrow.
Eyeballs. Again. If it's any consolation, I don't know why I keep writing them into books because eyeball shit freaks me the fuck out.
Also, eyelids. Yep, we're there now.
I'm not sure I really ruin cotton candy as much as maybe just defile it.
Possibly sausages and or hot dogs.
Ill-advised use of staple guns.
Are drug-addicted raccoons a trigger? Debate.
Clowns.
Sexy clowns.
Medical trauma, including serious injury, ambulances, open fractures, puncture wounds, blood loss, hospitals, surgical recovery.
Impaling. Not the sexy kind. But okay, that too.
Psychological/emotional abuse, sexual harassment, threats and intimidation, misogyny.
Injured dog.
Parental neglect.
Numerous weapons and sharp objects including knives, guns, baseball bats, metal hooks, and edge beveler? You should be used to these by now.
Detailed sex scenes which include, but are not limited to, adult toys, primal kink, cum kink, anal, rough sex, sexual acts in public.
Explicit and colorful language, including a lot of blasphemy. Don't say I didn't warn you.
There is a lot of injury and death. It's a book about a doctor and a serial killer falling in love, so I feel like that's probably a given.
Would you read that book based on the over 1 minute of trigger warnings?
That's a very, okay, obviously some of those are tongue in cheek because I feel that's an excessive list of trigger warnings.
Well, the raccoon is,
Yes.
for sure.
I think I'm gonna say it.
The,
a long trigger
the
warning
cum
there.
kink didn't get you on?
Yeah, nah, I think-
He's like,
I
you
was
lost
bad.
me at Primal.
Oh my god.
Well, I've started it. It's pretty good so far, but not as good as the first two. But this is the one I really wanted to tell you that play for you that stopped me in my tracks because some elements of it, I was like, what the? Same thing. Like, who is writing this? So this is
Lights Out
book
is
2, and it's called Lights Out.
Lights Out
is a fast-paced, dark stalker romance with a morally gray male lead. Some themes and scenes may be disturbing.
Listener discretion is advised, as this book contains sexually explicit discussion and scenes, including anal play, discussion of past trauma, alcohol consumption, medical content, blood and gore in a hospital setting, discussion of mental health, stalking, car accident description, death of a parent, and description of a violent death.
There's also mention of domestic abuse, invasion of privacy, home invasion, hidden cameras, hacking, theft, unintentional cannibalism, and desecration
Unintentional?
of the body.
Finally, Lights Out contains breath play, knife play, gun play, fear play, kidnap play, primal play, mask play, and consensual dubious consent.
I think that covers everything. If you are sticking around, hope you are ready to play.
Oh my God, the narrator is so hot.
Oh my God. I love how consuming alcohol requires a trigger warning because that's how I feel every time I leave for the bar.
And cannibalism.
And unintentional
Unintentional.
cannibalism.
Unintentional,
What
to be
is-
clear.
What is dubious consent?
That is a very fine line, and she does a really good job in the book of explaining it and lay it out. But it's basically like you're being chased, but you want to be chased, but you don't want to feel like you want to be chased. Does that mean through the woods?
Yes.
Okay, also, I feel like, I do feel like the trigger warnings are a little bit excessive. This is more like, this is spoiler. I feel like this is a total spoiler for the book.
It's not though, because like the stuff when it appears, you're like, oh, that's what it is. But I think it's nice knowing because I a while ago after I had a kid, I really couldn't handle anything about children whatsoever, like in any negative light. And it's not like these books do all that. But like they might just reference, oh, she lost a child or something like that. And it would take me out. So sometimes I would read them and it would just be like loss of a child. And I'd be like, I'm out. Thank you for letting me know because now I'm not going to spiral for half a day. So I think when you're like in a really good mental health place, this is silly. But if any of these occur to you, like let's say you just lost a family member in a really tragic car accident, you're not going to want to read a whole scene depicting a really tragic car accident that scarred the main character. So I think it's just a nice nod. You can skip over it if you don't need it. But for me, it actually, I wanted to bring it to the table because while it is ridiculous, it actually has really helped me in the past avoid books that were going to send me down a bad mental health path.
I used to be pretty flippant about content warnings and trigger warnings because I didn't really understand why they were necessary. But I think when you have anything that could set you off, like for example, I won't watch a movie if a pet dies. And so for me, I think everybody has that one or two thing. There are a couple of things that are just not good for your mental health that if you can avoid them, it's a kindness to your listeners and to your readers, but also like the fun is in getting to read the story. So even if you hear that like knife play is coming up, it's not like that spoils anything. You're just kind of like, oh, I wonder when that's coming up. Ooh.
But I agree with the ones you guys are talking about. Like, I'm the same way if anything happens to a kid. I'm the same way if anything happens to a pet. I feel like those are very, like, not to be dismissive, those are generic. I feel like this is so insanely specific, like unintentional cannibalism. Like
That's a little jarring for some people because I've read the series that we just talked about from the prior book, and there was some stuff where I was like, ooh, that's jarring, and it's not like it's going to take me out of my life mentally, but I drive and I read or I listen to these audiobooks a lot, and sometimes you'll just kind of be like, I have to turn that off. Oh my God. And it would have been nice to have a heads up.
Now, see, some of the podcasts, because I listen to true crime podcasts, right? And they'll give you trigger warnings in the beginning, depending on like if there is some racist language or misogynistic language or something like that. But I'm not kidding you. It takes like maybe 5 seconds, 10 seconds to give the trigger warning. This is just bananas. I've never heard anything like this.
The trigger warning itself is a book.
It's a whole chapter.
There it is.
The Bert Show.